Hello. Good morning, people. Welcome to this seminar on localization, and it gives me great pleasure to be saying a few words in the beginning and also facilitating the session through to just before the closing, which will be done by Philippa Rodset from the Manufacturing Circle. Let me just firstly welcome our panelists, and I thank them for participating and joining us. Eustace Mashimwe from proudly South Africa, Barbara Kopelovici from SAB, and then Philippa Rodset from the Manufacturing Circle. Localization has been put on the agenda, or has risen on the agenda, if you like, of economic recovery and economic growth in South Africa. And it's a major component of government's industrial policy and features prominently in the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan that was put together at NEDLAC by NEDLAC Social Partners and announced by President Ramaphosa in October 2020. In the run-up to that, NEDLAC Social Partners had agreed an economic recovery action plan, and localization also featured in that, and that was presented to the President on the 15th of September 2020. BUSA continues to engage on the economic recovery strategy at NEDLAC with government business, with government labor and community. And localization is an essential aspect of that, together with other structural issues to enable economic growth. A number of meetings have subsequently been held to promote localization and to begin to put into place mechanisms to start implementing local manufacturing in particular product areas. In March 2021, Minister Patel hosted a webinar for business entities. requesting business to mobilize a number of CEOs from identified sectors as champions for localization. And the sectors, amongst others, are agro-processing value chain, the healthcare value chain, basic consumer goods, capital goods, construction-driven value chains, and transport rolling stock. A number of CEOs put their hands up to be champions. In May 2021, they were nominated as champions. And subsequent to that, BUSA's Localization Working Group, on which proudly South Africa and the manufacturing circle serve, has taken the cudgels, if you like, and has had a meeting with the champions. And we've agreed on a process and a structure to start implementing in these particular sectors and identifying particular product areas that we can start looking at local manufacturing in. And so this BUSA's Localization Working Group will then drive this. So that's as far as the process is concerned to get localization going and putting it very high up on the agenda. But there are a number of issues that we need to recognize as part of the localization value chain, if you like. Firstly, we need to ensure that there's market access opportunities for local manufacturing. We can establish businesses, but will not sustain those if there are no customers or business outlets. And that's a critical area that we need to look at. In recognition of this, and if we are to create much needed jobs, one of the commitments in the Presidential Job Summit was, and I quote, the creation of B2B transparent procurement platforms where firms can list their tenders and procurement requirements to allow more firms, and especially Black firms, compete for their procurement. To enable this, proudly South Africa engaged SA breweries regarding their existing marketing access platform, which had been created as part of SAB's supplier transformation drive. Proudly South Africa has been working on enhancements to this platform since early 2020. This market access platform, which we are essentially launching today, is a key tool in the efforts to drive increased levels of localization in the private sector using these business champions as messengers. And we will also use these business champions as promoters of localization, including with their peers who have not yet joined this initiative. The invitation to this webinar has been extended beyond the identified localization champions to include proudly South Africa members and other private sector procurement decision makers who will be encouraged to utilize the market access platform for their own procurement and to refer their own suppliers to other users, as well as potentially advertise the procurement opportunities exclusively to suppliers of local-made products and services. Let me just conclude before I hand over to Eustace to say that one of the sort of triggers to get localization high up on the agenda was during the COVID pandemic last year, the fact that we were able to develop a number of local manufacturers to manufacture PPE locally after we were forced to import most of our PPE in the early stages of the pandemic because we needed it urgently. And I think that success of establishing local manufacturing for PPE needs to be replicated. But what we did find is that, and that's where the market access platform comes into play, what we did find is that the demand, the local demand for procurement from locally manufactured entities is not significant, and we needed to build that. So platforms like this one will enable us to actually match local manufacturing capacity with procurement needs of corporates and others in South Africa. And we are essentially launching that today. So with those few words, let me invite Eustace, who is the CEO of Proudly South Africa, to give his input and talk you through a bit more about what MAP is. Thank you very much. Eustace, all yours.
Thank you, Cass. Thank you for the introduction and for the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us this morning. I have a few slides to take you through as part of introducing you to this market access platform that Cass spoke about, which is essentially a sourcing tool to help those of you who are meant to make purchasing decisions and put processes in place that will help your organization find the products and consumables and raw materials that you require on a day-to-day basis, to find suppliers that are both transformed and are localized in that their value chains are entrenched within the Republic of South Africa, and help you contribute to the localization theme as contained in the Economic Recovery Plan. We have, as mentioned by Cass, formed a technical working committee, which basically comes from the initial commitments made in the Jobs Summit that was convened by President Ramaphosa back in 2018, and the framework agreement had localization entrenched in that what needed to be achieved at that point. And these advocates that come from Proudly SA, NBI, Manufacturing Circle, SA Breweries, BLSA, as well as BUSA, where we've now partnered with B4SA, formed this technical working committee. And one of the things that was identified in advancing the localization agenda that this technical working committee sought to advance was the fact that it was, it was difficult for some of the entities who were committed to localization to find suppliers and manufacturers that would help them meet their localization targets, that manufacture according to local content requirements, especially at industry standard level. Industry standard levels that are required, especially in terms of quality. If you've never used a supplier before, you don't necessarily know whether they'll be able to deliver a product at the right quality, and they will not compromise on your existing quality levels in terms of supply and your products. It was also evident that it was difficult for some of those who needed to buy and had a transformation agenda at the heart of their policies, to find transformed suppliers that are high performing, that they could trust, especially across various categories where they needed to find products. And so it was clear that a tool needed to be identified, which would help bridge the gap between buyers' expectations and suppliers' capabilities, and also take away excessive dependence on a few suppliers. I mean, we know that a lot of companies have traditional suppliers that they continuously buy from, and at times it becomes difficult to bring in new entrants, and you rely a lot on the selected few that you've been buying from. And that's what MAP seeks to do, is to help you find vetted manufacturers that you can buy from, is to help you find transformed suppliers across all categories that you can buy from, is to help bridge the gap between those who buy and those who supply in terms of the expectations from the buyers as well as the capabilities from the suppliers. And as an online portal, you will have an opportunity to find suppliers that you can buy from, those that supply locally made products, those that are transformed. And you can also refer, if you are a corporate that has a supplier that you've been utilizing over time and you want to help them grow, you can refer them based on the service levels that you have received from them and the quality of their products. You can refer them onto MAP so that other people can also buy from them. So I'm going to play a video which unpacks, quite a very short video, but it gives you a sense of what the market access platform seeks to do, what we seek to achieve, and how it will operate. And then I'll come back and wrap up my presentation once the video is played.
Large companies operating in South Africa recognize the long-term strategic benefit of current legislation focusing on transformation and corporates' responsibility to localize supply chains beyond philanthropic reasons and to comply with the legislation. corporates are increasingly investing in enterprise and supply development initiatives. However, a number of challenges remain. Finding vetted manufacturers according to local content requirements at acceptable industry standard levels of quality with the capacity to keep up with demand required from large organizations. Finding high-performing, transformed suppliers across all categories, bridging the gap between buyers' expectations and suppliers' capabilities, and suppliers' over-reliance on limited key accounts. Searching for suppliers is a key step in the procurement process. The suppliers need to meet the company's expectations regarding cost, capacity, quality, deadline, as well as performance. Introducing Market Access Platform, your preferred portal to source localized and transformed suppliers. Market Access Platform, MAP, is an online portal that influences localization and transformation. It enables corporates to refer, find, and rate vetted high-performing transformed suppliers, local service providers, and manufacturers across industries, thereby creating market access for suppliers while mitigating the risks associated with sourcing from unfamiliar companies. Buyers are able to find reliable and vetted localized and transformed suppliers, refer their high-performing transformed suppliers, local manufacturers, and service providers to MAP, thereby enabling them to grow and become more competitive. Advertise procurement opportunities. Support the growth of their own high-performing suppliers. Increase competitiveness in sourcing. Reduce the cost of sourcing. Rate services received from suppliers. View the socio-economic impact of their commercial activity with selected suppliers. And record and monitor their localization procurement commitments. Suppliers are able to increase their visibility in a cross-industry marketplace, find other suppliers to procure from, and view tenders when published. Benefits and unique selling proposition. Buyer benefits. Contribute towards a localized and transformed supply chain. Retain and create jobs. Enable the sustainability of suppliers by creating market access opportunities. And contribute to the growth of the economy by favoring local manufacturers and service providers by increasing local demand. Supplier benefits. Corporate visibility. Gauge client satisfaction. B2B opportunities, buying from other suppliers. And attend proudly South African events and be exposed to the collective National Buy Local campaign, calling on both private and public sectors, as well as consumers, to procure locally. We are therefore calling on corporate South Africa to review and secure procurement practices and give preference in all cases possible to companies that are manufacturing locally. Utilize MAP to influence localization and transformation. Refer and find high-performing suppliers. Advertise procurement opportunities. And record and monitor localization procurement commitments. Market Access Platform, your preferred portal to source localized and transformed suppliers.
And that's the platform and what it stands for. We are grateful to SAB, who had initially introduced MAP for purposes of finding high-performing transformed suppliers, and for them allowing us to then extend MAP beyond finding transformed suppliers and to include the localization imperatives. And we thank SAB, who is part of the AB InBev family, for gracefully allowing us to temper with MAP as it was and to further develop it to include localization. So just to summarize what you've seen on the video, as a buyer, as a corporate member on MAP, once you've registered, you can use MAP to find reliable and vetted localized and transformed suppliers. The companies that will be on MAP will be vetted. And so you can trust them because, like I said initially, sometimes it's difficult to trust companies that you have not worked with before. And so one of the guarantees that you'll have on MAP is that the companies will have been vetted by Proudly SA for quality and local content, and quality in terms of the service that they will be rendering and the product itself meeting required quality standards for that specific industry in which the product comes from. And also that even if you have not bought from them, if they're on MAP and they've been referred by another corporate, they are referred because they were able to meet the requirements set by the previous corporate member. And so you can do the same. You can find suppliers, but you can also refer your high-performing transform suppliers and localized suppliers onto MAP, which will give them an opportunity to grow and not just rely on you as a corporate, as their only customer. You can then also utilize MAP to advertise procurement opportunities and opportunities that will be seen by high-performing suppliers who will be localized. So if you have a localization agenda and one of your concerns is that if you go on an open tender process and you utilize mainstream media and that some of the people who respond to your tenders might not necessarily supply you with locally made products, there might be middlemen who might supply you with imported products where they change labels, etc., because that practice is there. There's predatory practices out there that we're concerned about. And so on MAP, you are able to advertise procurement opportunities that will only be seen by companies that are on MAP. And these are localized companies, but also transformed suppliers, if that is your agenda. You can through MAP ensure that your suppliers that you have as part of your supply chain management processes, ensure that they grow beyond just having you as a customer, and that it increases your competitiveness in you sourcing your suppliers, because it's all available to you at the click of a button once you register on MAP. It will reduce the cost of sourcing as well. And you are able to rate the services that you receive from your suppliers on MAP so that others who come in and want to consider utilizing those suppliers can see the rating given and can then consider whether to use them or not. If they deliver poor services, your rating will help warn the next supplier, next member or corporate that intends buying from them to be wary of certain aspects based on your rating. You can then record and monitor your localization procurement commitments and what you achieve in that regard, because you know that whoever you're buying from a localization perspective, if you have chosen your suppliers on MAP based on the fact that they supply locally made products, you can then, based on how much you spend on them, give a sense of the contribution that you're making to the socioeconomic impact as part of your commercial activity. And that's what you can do as a member, as a buyer, corporate buyer on MAP. But as a supplier, you'll be able to increase your visibility in a cross-industry marketplace, because what you will have on MAP are corporates and buyers who come from an array of industries, and you will not be limited only to your one primary customer or one industry in which you specialize. If you have intentions as a supplier to get access to market opportunities across other industries, MAP will give you that opportunity. As a supplier, you can also find other suppliers that you can buy from. So as part of your value chain, you might need to source consumables and raw materials. So you can register both as a member, which is a buyer, as well as a supplier on MAP. And you can find other localized and transformed suppliers that you can buy from. You are able to also view tenders and RFQs that are advertised on MAP that are targeted at local producers, at those who render services locally and according to localization prescriptions. And you are able to find transformed suppliers or buyers rather that are looking for transformed suppliers who advertise tenders on the platform. So that's the benefit, that as the buyers advertise the tenders, you have first-hand access to those tenders, and you can then report on the benefits that you've derived from having listed yourself as a supplier on MAP as a result of procurement opportunities that would have come your way. There is reporting and evaluation that we will urge those who register on MAP to undertake, and we seek to provide those reports to organized business as part of their reports to NEDLAC. And in line with the Economic Recovery and Reconstruction Plan, there is a need for ongoing discussions, and part of those discussions will include tabling of reports in terms of progress being made from a localization perspective. And so ideally what we seek to obtain is localization commitments, and where the template that you see on the screen gives you a sense of what we look for. It's the name of the company, the industry you come from, the province and the area which you are based, as well as the products that you're earmarking for localization. Which products are you intending to buy locally across your respective value chains? What is the rand value of that procurement spend that you earmark to spend on these items that you're going to earmark for localization? And over what period are you going to spend on locally made products for that specific item. And an example would be where you source specific raw materials, and you will say, for those raw materials over the next 3 years, we're going to spend 100 million rands, and that's the figure that we're looking for in the time frame, as well as any future prospects to say beyond that first initial 3 years. If you go back to my example, do you see yourself extending beyond that 3 years, and do you see yourself adding other items that are part of your value chains to your localization drive? And part of the reporting will also include the identification of other opportunities linked to whether there's existing direct or indirect manufacturing capacity in the country to meet your need, whether demand exists both within you as well as in the industry, and there's new opportunities. We'll also, at the end, ideally want to get a sense of how many jobs your purchasing decisions will have impacted in terms of retaining existing jobs and creating additional jobs. And we will work with industry bodies and relevant statutory organizations to try to determine how many jobs your purchasing decisions and your procurement spend might have impacted. So to summarize, as Proudly South African, we sit with a base of companies that are vetted for quality and local content. But over and above that, there's going to be reliance on industry to refer suppliers that you're buying from. So these are going to be a base of companies that you can trust. Even if you have not bought from them in the past, you know that the rating given by other entities will give you a sense as to whether they can be trusted or not. We want to go out and secure localization commitments, obviously in line with competition regulations. We know that competition regulations stipulate that we might have to tread carefully in recording those commitments that we secure from the private sector. And we'll, as part of the commitments, what we want to see happening is that as buyers, as private sector entities, as boards, and as management and executives within the private sector, identify items or products that you can earmark and ring fence for localization. We will then identify suitable companies on our database, as well as in partnership with industry bodies that can live on MAP. We will list this on MAP, and this will include those that are referred by US corporates onto MAP. Once both the corporates who register as members as well as their buyers register on MAP, they can then utilize MAP to advertise tenders. This will enable those buyers who have registered on MAP to find suppliers that you can trust, localized as well as transformed suppliers that you can buy from. And what we will then have are those reports and the dashboard that I spoke about. And we will then have made it easy for you to find suppliers that can help you advance both your localization and transformation agendas. So some of the frequently asked questions as we've started engaging some of the entities that we have engaged around the launch, the upcoming launch of MAP, which is now happening today. Well, people are asking us as to how do they get access to MAP. So MAP is exclusive. As a supplier, you have to be referred by a member. You can't just come onto MAP on your own. You have to be referred by a member. Alternatively, contact Proudly SA so that we can vet you, so that you can live on MAP. And we do this simply because we want only vetted companies to live on MAP. We don't want companies who are going to come and pretend to be supplying locally made products when they are not, or where the quality is not right and no one can vouch for your service levels or for the quality of your product. So engage your current suppliers or your current customers, ask them to register you as a supplier on MAP, to refer you based on your service levels on MAP. Let them rate your service so that those who want to consider utilizing you once they come across your details on MAP can then know that you can be trusted. Alternatively, contact Proudly SA, and we will take you through a vetting process, and you can then be registered on MAP, and buyers can then easily find you. Who do you contact for assistance? You log onto mapcollaboration.com. There is that tab where it says want to connect, contact us. When you click on that, it will give you an opportunity to prompt you to include your details, and we will then contact you once we have your details and help you register onto MAP, both as a member and as a supplier. But remember, as a supplier, what we will need is for you to come through a referral system or to come through Proudly South African. And one of the questions that we were asked in the past, which I've touched on, is whether you can be both a member and a supplier at the same time. Yes, you can. You can register as a member with the intention of finding people that are going to supply you, but at the same time, register yourself as a supplier so that that service or product that you're offering can then be taken up by other companies who are on MAP who want to buy that product that you are offering, especially if it's a locally made product, as well as if you're a transformed entity that would benefit from purchasing decisions made by those who want to find transformed suppliers. So you can register both as a member and as a supplier onto MAP. Is there a cost attached to participating on MAP? No, there is no cost associated to utilizing the platform. Both as a supplier and as a corporate member, there's absolutely no cost. In terms of next steps, we are calling on businesses to register on MAP. Register your supply chain procurement officers, introduce them to us. The contact details are on there. The 2 email addresses are the email addresses to which you can send your inquiries, or you can go on to mapcollaboration.com and we will then contact you. We appeal to all of you to ask your procurement officers to contact us, let us engage with them, let us give them a sense of how MAP works and how it will work so that you can then incorporate MAP into your supply chain management policies and processes such that it becomes part of your buying processes going forward, especially when you will have made localization commitments and to help you achieve your transformation agenda, imperatives. I'm going to, as I conclude, play a video that gives you a sense of what the real appeal is to South Africans in general, to both corporate South Africa, to the public sector, to ordinary consumers, as we all work towards turning the tide on unemployment, the tide on this economy that continues to battle. We've seen the civil unrest engulf our country over a couple of weeks ago. And what we are calling for is for South Africans to acknowledge the fact that we all have a responsibility to play in turning this economy around. We all have a part to play in ensuring that we build this economy to a point where it can absorb as many of our people as possible into jobs, but most importantly, that it grows at a rate that will help us start seeing a difference. We have been downgraded, we have been severely affected by the unemployment rates, and the poverty levels in this country continue to grow. So let me play the video, which is basically our appeal as Proudly South African to all of you, and then hand back to Cass for the next presentation.
The second half is about to begin. We need to change the scoreboard. It's time for all of us to pause and rethink the game plan in order to save the future. I call on all of us to be game changers, because greatness isn't reserved only for some people. By buying local, we're choosing to create jobs and sustain the ones we have. Time and time again, South Africans have taken destiny into their own hands, creating products that the rest of the world wanted to buy. See, the world remembers about us what we sometimes forget, but it's time for change. Let's all buy local. It's game time. Zanzi.
Local is lekker!
Your everyday decisions shape our future.
And thank you. Your everyday decisions shape our future. And what we're calling on all of you to do as Proudly South African is to buy local to help us create jobs. Thank you very much, Cass. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much, Eustace. Thank you for a very inspiring presentation and for explaining how MAP works and dealing with some frequently asked questions that you've already had on MAP. Let's go straight into the next session, and I'd like to ask Barbara Copello-Vici. I hope I spelled it correctly, Barbara. She's the Director of Entrepreneurship at SA Breweries, and she'll say a few words about MAP and the interaction with Proudly South Africa. Thanks. All yours, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Cass, and thank you, Eustace, to invite us to participate in this discussion. What a journey. I was asked to share a few words about our experience as a corporate in the journey of MAP. So we basically started it in 2018. And that was at the back of an engagement that we had about where are we failing to drive the localization agenda as a private sector. And when we had that brainstorming with a lot of large corporates in South Africa, we realized that we all had great high potential local Black suppliers, but that we were not sharing and referring them to each other. And we didn't have a channel to do so. And that's really how the adventure of MAP started. We had a steering committee cross industry. And we started discovering those gem of suppliers that had provided great service to one of our companies and were able to take them to the next level. To become, I think from being a great medium-sized supplier to a Black industrialist, it's all about the kind of market that you can access to. And once you've got one large corporate that buy from you, it needs to be an asset for you to grow further to the next stage. And that's really where we see MAP playing a magnificent role of connection. I think Proudly SA is really the best placed to really drive that platform and that channel to the next level. Enabling all qualifying suppliers to be represented and ensuring that the connection happen. I think, as you said, Eustace, the country is going through a very difficult phase economically, and localization, we believe as SAB, is one of the key channels that we are going to make that economic recovery true. So as SAB, we're already buying 95% local. And we are looking to champion it further. We will be the first champion of MAP, of course. So we are ready to add all our suppliers and make the relevant commitments. So we're just, making the call to our peers to discover the great supplier that we have been working with on the platform and be able to use it, getting great quality and driving the economic recovery agenda. That's just a few words, and I'll be, of course, present for the question and answer, if there is any.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Barbara. Are there folks, can we open it up for questions and answers? You can either put your questions on the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screens. I don't see any questions yet. Or if you raise your hand, I'll try to recognize your hands. And just facilitate any questions colleagues might have. Are there any questions, comments on what is essentially an interesting and good platform to bring to localization and begin to get that going and to create the market for localized locally manufactured products? Lebo, Lithuania. Please come in, Lebo. Okay, while Lebo, I don't know whether she's on mute, but how does one become a supplier to SAB as a farmer, Barbara?
Thank you, Cass. So we've got a portal for aspiring supplier that is linked directly with our procurement teams. I will respond and put the web address in the chat. Of course, so when it comes to our farmers specifically, we have a bit of a different approach. We have actually an agriculture development program which support emerging farmers, Black emerging farmers, and then agglomerate their production so that we can then buy from them. So we don't really take like ad hoc new farmers, because it's really a program that we see as key to develop the economy and scale our farmers, but happy to engage.
Thank you. I see there's a question from Bianca on, she tried to join the platform now. Can we register on the platform, or does someone need to contact us to register? Eustace, do you want to deal with that?
Yes, so can they go to mapcollaboration.com and we will then contact them and take them through the process. The alternative is to write to silindile@proudlysa.co.za. We will help them register, especially if they want to register as a member or as a buyer. We will help them, take them through that process. If they want to register as a supplier, they will have to write to us and we will take them through the vetting process first before we put them on there. Thanks, Cass.
And can somebody from Proudly South Africa put that email on the chat, please, so that people know it?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll definitely do that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, folks? Zacharia Motsumi. Zacharia. Folks, it seems we can't hear people. Is there a problem?
Yeah, I think maybe what we must try and do, Cass, is to ask them to type the questions up.
Yeah.
And them that way. Yes.
It looks like we've got a bit of a technical problem. I can't hear people. I can't hear participants. Can you just, Zacharia, you can try talking, but I can't hear you. Perhaps you could type your question either on the question and answer or the chat, please. Okay, there's a question from Nkanyezi Lutuli. What is the fee to be a corporate member for Proudly South Africa? Eustace?
There's no fee for companies to be members on MAP, to register themselves on MAP. There's no cost attached to it, but to be a corporate member of Proudly South African outside of MAP, so that you benefit from all our other platforms, the cost of membership is 100,000 rands per annum, but only if your turnover is 100 million rands and above, it's 100,000 rands. For SMMEs with turnover of up to 5 million rands, it's 500 rands per annum. And that is the fee for becoming a member of Proudly South African. But to register on MAP, there is no cost attached to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Lebo Letunia, she's from Black Umbrellas, and they've registered as a member of Proudly South Africa, and would like to find out how their SMMEs can register. Do they have to register individually, or can Black Umbrellas do it on their behalf? Eustace?
So Black Umbrellas, I know we have that partnership with them. They have to, those SMMEs that they want to bring on board will have to join individually so that we can take them through the process. But as part of the package we have with Black Umbrellas, and that's what we do with other entities in that space, is the umbrella body registers, excuse the pun, the umbrella body registers and then all the SMMEs that are qualifying are then registered individually so that we can take them through the vetting process before we expose them to procurement opportunities so that we know they've gone through the process and they can be trusted. So Lebo, please contact us. The email address is there, sina@proudlysa.co.za. It's been typed on the chat as requested by us. Contact us and then we will be able to assist you.
Okay, thank you. And then again from Lebo, is the platform a B2B only?
Yes, definitely. It's a B2B only. There is a platform for consumers. It's called rsamade.co.za. That's where if your product is targeted at consumers, that's a business to consumers platform. rsamade.co.za. You can go and list your product on there. And consumers who go into that platform looking for products know that every single product that they come across is locally made. And so as a consumer, if you have your own personal localization agenda that you want to drive to help us grow the economy, you can go into that platform and it will help you. Sure.
Okay, thank you. And then from Sandile, and what does the 500 Rand fee for SMMEs provide? What do you get for the registration?
So it's an array of access to market benefits. And the first one we went through today, it's MAP. You are able to, as a result of having gone through the vetting process, live on a platform like MAP. You can have your consumer-facing product live on rsamade.co.za at no additional cost. You can participate in other access to market opportunities that we source for our members, including those that are physical. When things are normal, we buy space for consumers to go to trade expos, etc. But the biggest one is you can utilize your logo on your products and all your collateral to identify yourself as a company that supplies locally made products or services, and you benefit by association. For 500 rands per annum, I think we give a good deal. The value proposition is quite strong. Thank you.
Okay, and then Heidi Jacobs, what percentage of vetted suppliers on MAP supply can potentially supply to the mining industry? I don't know whether you have suppliers on MAP already. But,
no, no, we don't. Right, Cass. We don't have suppliers. We're launching it today. We are on a drive to have suppliers registered on MAP. In fact, we have started having some of the conversations. We have engaged the mining equipment manufacturers of South Africa about the possibility of linking their TARA program with MAP. And we said we're still working around some of those dynamics. They might not come on immediately because they still need to go back, get their mandate, etc., from their members. But the conversation has happened with the mining equipment manufacturers of South Africa to get their mining equipment itself on MAP. But PPE is another one that you mentioned, Cas, where we've built up capacity through that B4SA partnership that is led by yourselves as BUSA, and that those PPE manufacturers are also going to live on MAP. They've gone through the vetting process, both in entities that need to accredit them like SAPRA, and now they live on the Proudly SA portal, which is on our website, and they're going to now be transferred onto MAP, so that as we continue to have conversations with the Mining Minerals Council, we've already spoken to the Minerals Council interestingly as well. So we're talking to both the demand side and the supply side. So we are talking to the Minerals Council about the possibility of them engaging their members to see if it's possible, if it is any way possible that some of them can incorporate MAP into their buying processes, because we know in the mines, especially, the buying processes are quite extensive and onerous, and people have got processes and suppliers that they've vetted in place. But we are encouraging them to, once we have the mining equipment manufacturers on MAP, once we have some of those other consumables that are utilized in the mines, to also be exposed to those suppliers.
Okay, thank you. Then from Colin Mahlaule, what's the turnaround for feedback after registering on MAP?
Okay, it depends on how soon you make available the information that we require, because part of the vetting process will look at localization. Are you making your product locally? And so there's a form that you have to populate in which we are able to determine your percentage. So the percentage of local content, as well as whether the actual product is made locally. You know, one of the things, and I'll be brief, one of the things that we have to take into consideration is the fact that there are instances where the raw materials required are not necessarily available in the country. So when you bring them in, you bring in the raw material unprocessed, and is the transformation of that raw material into the final product happening within the borders of South Africa? That's one of the things we need to look at, and that's when it will start ticking the localization box. And the quality aspect, we have to determine whether your product meets the quality standards prescribed for the industry in which you're coming from. So that is what we're going to try and do as part of the vetting. So it depends on how quickly you give us the information that we require, and then we can quickly vet you. I mean, within 24 hours, we can vet if we have all the information at our disposal.
Okay, I think that also answers another question from Colin on expanding on the vetting process. Okay. Thank you. And Wendy Zulu, are you going to be monitoring the use of new suppliers without those versus those introduced by the corporates, that is continuing to use their old suppliers and not using new ones?
We are not going to force people to use new suppliers. It's a choice that they make. But all we are doing is we are providing new entrants with an opportunity to be exposed to companies that they probably would not have been exposed to. And so the rest is dependent on their supply chain processes, on contracts that are in place. But this is going to give you an opportunity as a new entrant, either in the industry, as a new entrant in the industry, or someone who's looking to grow beyond your current customer and finding new customers. So that is the idea behind MAP, is to make it easy for you to be exposed to those who can potentially buy from you, but to also give the corporates who are looking for other suppliers that they can buy from, especially in instances where they want to drive a deliberate import replacement program, where they've been buying without giving consideration as to where the product comes from. Now they have an opportunity to buy a product that they know with absolute certainty is locally made, and someone can vouch for the service levels and the quality of the product.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions, folks?
I see there's one around SABS in the vetting process for mining suppliers. You will have to go through the vetting process in that industry, Adele. And that's why we specifically talk about products meeting the quality standards specified for that industry or for that product. You will have to, if your product has to be vetted by SABS, you have to go through SABS. If there's another vetting mechanism that is prescribed for that product, and the example is medical PPE. If you're supplying medical PPE, it will have to go through some of those accreditation agencies like SAPRA. And so it depends on what is prescribed for that industry. Once it has gone through that process and you can provide us evidence that your product meets the required standards for that industry, then it can live on MAP. Alternatively, we will then have to rely on the fact that another corporate has bought from you after having checked that you do meet the required quality standards for that industry, and then refer you and your product can live on MAP. Thanks.
Okay, and then does the vetting process also include verifying the declared local content level?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
We do that. We do that because it's self-declaration that we can't necessarily rely on. Otherwise, we'll be caught with instances where people declare a certain level of local content, but then the ultimate product that is supplied might not meet those standards. And the perfect example which I gave earlier is one where the products are imported and people just change labels. We've seen those, and that's why we've strengthened our compliance work in Proudly South African, and that's what we're going to look at in terms of levels of local content. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions. What is the link I can use to access MAP? I think you've responded to that, right?
Yeah, I think mapcollaboration.com. Just go to mapcollaboration.com, click on the contact us button. We're only launching it. There's no content on MAP currently. And what we need to do is to take people through through the registration process so that as buyers they can live on MAP. And we are going to already start with loading a lot of the Proudly SA members who have gone through the vetting process onto MAP. And then as corporates start referring companies, it will grow that base of companies that are available as suppliers.
So it's mapcollaboration.com. There you go, mapcollaboration.com. And
yes,
Sandile, if you're trying that and you're still having difficulty, then let us know. Because Sandile is saying struggling to register on MAP website. Okay, any other questions, folks? What is SAB's involvement on MAP? Barbara, do you want to respond?
Sorry, I'm looking for the question, Cass.
What is SAB's involvement on MAP?
So we literally organized the initial discussion that seeded MAP at the very beginning in 2018. And then we did the initial development and we were part of the steering committee. So like we are the first believer in MAP. And so I can assure you that there will be a supplier coming from our side and we will be using the tool as well. So we're really championing it. And we basically the parent of MAP. And now I think that Proudly SA is taking over and we're very glad about it. I hope that responds to the question.
Okay, thank you. And Eustace, will you be circulating the slides?
Yes, yes, we will. We definitely are circulating the slides too. So to all delegates who've attended, they will receive a survey and a copy of the slides after the event.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't see any more questions, folks. If there aren't any more questions, can I hand over to Philippa Rotzet, who's the CEO of the Manufacturing Circle, to say a few words and close us off. Philippa,
thanks.
all yours.
Thanks, Kaz. Firstly, thank you very much to...
Sorry, Philippa, just give me 1 second. Does SAB use the same vetting process that MAP uses? Are there any suppliers that have benefited from MAP from SAB's point of view? Barbara?
Yes, so we have. Obviously, what we do is we try, I think every member, corporate member, has that discussion with Proudly SA to try to align as much as possible the onboarding criteria. So I know that when we initially designed MAP, we aligned it to our criteria. There is still a procurement process that needs to happen. So if we are looking, for example, we have a tender and we're looking for local suppliers, we will then involve you in the tendering process, and you will of course need to meet the criteria from a quality, delivery, etc. But basically it puts you on the map. And it gives you an access to the procurement process. And we've had success story. We've had one of our suppliers, for example, that started supplying Coke through the MAP process. And that enabled him to grow his business to the next level. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you very much. Philippa, all yours. Thank you. Take us to the end. Thanks.
Thanks, Kaz. Firstly, thanks to you, Kaz, and to Eustace and Barbara for taking us through the background and the context and the workings of MAP, and to the South African breweries for being the custodian and the parent of this platform, and for allowing this process to take place where initially it was to allow for your various transformation initiatives, and to broaden that to also include localization, and also to the MAP Steering Committee. I also want to mention the Localisation Technical Working Committee, also involved in supporting this process. Thanks again to South African breweries, to Proudly South African, to BUSA, to the National Business Initiative, to Business Leadership South Africa, and the Consumer Goods Council, together with the Manufacturing Circle. This wide range of parties indicates the very firm understanding that we really are operating in an ecosystem, and it's incredibly important to connect buyers and suppliers. We were very much made aware of this last year during the ramp up of the production of medical equipment and PPE, and we ramped up very successfully, but also to complete the circle, it's very important that from a procurement side, we are also connecting the dots. So really, this platform, which is very well conceptualized and has taken time to develop, is a very effective way to connect buyers and suppliers. But as a platform, it is only as good as the number of users. So in closing, I really would like to urge all parties, first of all, to thank attendees on this call for participating, but to urge everybody to follow the lead of the South African breweries to give the platform a try. You may participate as a buyer or a supplier or both. We all operate in value chains and play different parts in that process. So I really would urge parties in closing to get onto the platform, give it a try, and help to build this very important ecosystem that the MAP lays a good foundation for. Thanks very much, Kaz, and thanks, parties.
Thank you very much, Philippa, and thank you very much to all our panelists and to those who have participated in the session. I see we had over 60 people participating. And we hope that you will now interact with Proudly South Africa, make MAP a real powerful tool to actually bring locally manufacturing products in touch with procurers of those products. And we hope that we can go from strength to strength in developing our industrial and manufacturing capacity. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.